Good afternoon. In this video, I'd like to talk about the SWOT chart, this thing right here. The SWOT chart, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with the term SWOT, stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The SWOT chart, in terms of looking at the opportunity or opportunity being analyzed, is an outstanding chart. It identifies the strengths and weaknesses of your sales campaign, where you're at risk, where you have an opportunity to improve your position and how to do it through action items, and where you're at risk or threats. So I'm not going to talk about, in this video, I'm not going to talk about how to interpret the SWOT analysis. What I'm going to talk about is how it works, the mechanics of the SWOT analysis. For instance, why is this particular bar so short and at the top versus this one here, which is in the middle and is much longer? What is it about the SWOT chart that causes that, and what does it identify? What kind of information that is useful to us as salespeople does this provide? And also the difference between the green and the red. Now, when we get into actually interpret it, the green actually represents the potential and the red represents the risk. Now, to explain the SWOT chart, I'm actually going to use an Excel spreadsheet. Now, there are some issues. The Excel spreadsheet it's very simplified. The SWOT chart is more sophisticated. I'm actually modeling it using a standard Excel stock chart. Just before we proceed, just let you know there's a couple of issues with it. And certainly, this is not how the actual chart works. But if you bear with me, we'll get cracking here, and I'll just show you how it works. So here, we have over here 10 questions, questions 1 to 10. And this column, if you answer the question, yes, you get 1 point. If you answer the question, no, you get a negative point. So here's the answer column, and here's the score. And it's added up at the bottom using a very simple Excel sum. And what we do is we take the ratio of the what you've got to the total number of questions, which is 10. And I'll come back to this column here, the uncertain column. And you recognize these: yes, no, uncertain. Certainly you recognize those question answers from Oculus. Pretty straightforward. Here I've answered, I have 2 no answers, so I've got 8 plus answers, which would give me 8, and 2 no answers, so 8 minus 2 is 6. So I've got a score of 6. But I can, it's pretty standard. I change this to a no, it drops down. So it went from 6 to 4. So, and that's how it works. You can change any of these. There's no magic here. I'll change this to a yes. And this is the problem, by the way, with this Excel chart. For some reason, it seems to smear it. But at the top, you'll see it is 40, which is the score, 40%. Now, you'll notice over here, I have 2 columns, actual value and SWOT value, and I'm going to explain that as we go through this video. So where we are on this, so right now what we have is we have 1, 2, 3 negative scores. So -3 and +7 is +4. Our score is 40%. And we've seen things like this before. There's nothing new in this. So let me just bring this back to a yes. And again, this funny smearing of the answer, I must be a bug in it. But if I look at this one right here, this particular question, question 3, you'll see it highlighted. Right now, the answer is no. So I have a score of 40. Suppose the answer to this was yes. I changed that to a yes. What's my score? Well, you can see it's gone to 60. I got this smearing still. So I've gone from 60. Just look at the top of that. So it's 60 when yes, 40 when no. But what happens if I don't know the answer to that question? I don't know if I can't answer the question yes or no. Just like in Oculus, there are some questions you can't answer yes or no because you don't know. So what I've put in here is a third option, just like in Oculus, that gives me an uncertain. So I don't know the answer, so I answer uncertain. And you'll notice is what happened over here. The low value is 40%, which would be the score if you answered no. And the high value is 60%, which would be the score if the answer was yes. But I don't know, so all I can say is that my true score, which is this right here, is somewhere in the middle. Now, in this case, it's 50%. But let's do another one of these. Let's change this answer to uncertain. First of all, let's flip it around. You'll see that the score is 50 with yes. What would it be with no? It would be 30, not a surprise. So let's change that to uncertain. So now we have a score of 40, which is this right here, but there's now uncertainty in the answer, which could take it down to 20 or as high as 60. So the length of this bar in the SWOT chart is directly proportional to the number of questions you answered uncertain. Let's put one more in. Change this to an uncertain as well. Okay, and there's quite a few questions in Oculus, and so you can see that how it all those uncertain answers affect your score in the bar. So that's what happens is the more uncertains, the greater the high and low. So this represents how well you've qualified the opportunity in that particular category. So if I look here, I'd say because this particular bar is so small, I would say it's well qualified. Versus this bar, which is competition, which is very long, which is saying there's a lot of information about the competition that I don't know. And you can see it's all the way down to, I don't know, 25, 30%, as high as 60%. So at the low end, this is the risk. So the red in the SWOT chart represents the degree of risk. On the other hand, if I could turn those questions into a yes or positive, then the middle point would move up to the top end, which is about 70% or 60% or something like that. So this represents, the green represents the potential score you can have. So that's how it works. Now, let me just also do a couple of other things to show you how this moves. So I've got this degree of uncertainty here. So suppose there's a question there, I've answered no, but I find that after doing some additional things, implementing a couple of action items, I can change this to yes. So you'll see that this moves up. By the same token, suppose it moves down. So yes, no, and it moves the entire bar up and down. Uncertain changes the length of the bar. The top half of the bar, above the black line here, which is green in the SWOT chart, represents the potential. The bottom half represents the risk. So that's how it works. Now, you'll notice that here, the score is right in the middle. But what I want to show you is something called the edge effect. I have here actual value and SWOT value. And you notice the scale here it goes from plus 100% to minus 100%. But I want to point out this particular formula right here. What we're talking about here in probability, we're looking at the probability of an event happening. And the event we want to happen is that we win the deal and that it closes on or before the stated close date. So because we're dealing with probability, the probability is always between 0 and 100%. You can't have a negative probability, and you can't have a probability over 100%. Like, for example, if I say the probability of it raining this afternoon is 0%, then it's absolutely not going to rain. It doesn't make sense to say the probability is minus 10% or the minus 20%. That just doesn't, it's meaningless. So 0 is the lowest you can go. By the same token, the probability of it being rainy tomorrow, if I say it's 100%, then it's absolutely going to rain tomorrow. A probability of 100%, 120% of rain tomorrow, that's meaningless too. So what I want to show you now is something called the edge effect. And you'll notice that more or less, in this particular example, the value of the score is halfway between the high and the low. And here it is right here. Okay, there's the score, there's the high, there's the low. So it's plus or minus, so it's 50 plus or minus 30. And it looks balanced. Now, I got to just caution you, it's not always exactly in the middle because of the complexities of the algorithms. It doesn't always come out that way. But what happens if a number of these questions are answered no? I'll just flip this one. So you see we start at 0% or 1%. And let me change another one to no here. Change this one. So you see what happens is the actual value goes negative, which is shown right here. But in the Oculus SWOT chart, we stop it from going below 0. And so it's got this boundary or edge effect where the center point, the score, looks like it's in the bottom portion of the bar. In actual fact, there's a negative percentage which extends below this, which we just don't show because it's meaningless. And so when you see that, don't let it bother you. It's just, as I say, it's just the edge effect. So we just keep going here to give you a sense. And so you can actually see it'll drop to 0. And let me just increase some of these. And it just seems to show up like this. So if you're watching the chart, I'll do another one. I'll do another one here, change this to yes. So please keep in mind that yes, no moves the entire bar up and down. Uncertain makes the bar larger or smaller. Shifting an answer uncertain, if you change your answer to yes, which has a positive impact, everything moves up except the top line. On the other hand, if you change it to no, everything moves down except the bottom line. So that's how it works. I hope this provided an explanation for it. If you want to understand more about interpreting this chart to what it means and what you have to do and where you have to focus your attention, see the video on interpreting the SWOT chart. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. Bye for now.